Hello and welcome to Beer Club. I'm Luke and this week we are drinking a beer from Garage Project. It is the Electric Dry Hop Acid Test, a beautiful beery homage to Tom Wolfe. It is novel, the Kool-Aid Acid Test, which is a bit of a iconic, very trippy book. And Tom Wolfe, if you haven't read any of his work, take a look. He's one of the greatest American authors of the modern age. You might have heard of Bonfire of the Vanities or A Man in Full. The Right Stuff is a really good one, or just watch the films and TV shows. Anyway, cheers. This is a sour beer, a dry hopped kettle sour beer. So this style of beer really came about in the 2010s, I suppose. And it was breweries like, I suppose, like Anderson Valley that really at the forefront of innovation with these modern kettle sours. So historically, there were German beer styles and things like Gose and Berliner Weisse that were light, spritzy, tart, acidic. But really, really niche, rare sort of beers. And then you have the wild fermentation beers, like the barrel aged stuff and the lambics. Your sort of Drei Fonteinen, your Cantillon, and that style of stuff. But these sort of like clean lactic sour beers are something that's a pretty modern take on, as I say, historic styles. And the idea of putting some heavy dry hopping in them only came around relatively recently when craft brewers really started embracing aroma from the hops. The hops weren't just used as a preservative agent, as a bittering agent. They were used for the flavour because, of course, the tartness, the acidity, the sourness completely clashes with the bitterness of hops. It's something you don't want to be drinking, resinous bitter hops combined with this sour acid. But what works really nicely is lovely kind of fruity flavours. So that's why there's just a real prevalence for fruited kettle sours these days. In fact, almost all sours that you see are fruited sours. It's pretty much become synonymous with sour beer. And that is, as I say, week after week, basically, that is what sells. That craft beer drinkers these days, people say, oh, I like sour beers. And really what they're saying when they say I like sour beers is that they like things that aren't necessarily bitter or tart, and more than all of that, they like lovely fruity flavours. So I think that's why a lot of breweries don't bother doing non-fruited kettle sours, because people love fruit, and fair enough. So working with hops, like in this beer, so it is Galaxy, it's New Zealand White Iti, it's Sapphire, and they're all hops that have a lot of fruity character to them. You've got your sort of lime, I think, is a really dominant one here, which obviously lime being sort of an acidic thing, but the lime flavour, the lime zest. You've got your, I suppose, some kind of like marmalade, just really lots of lovely, like a bit of grapefruit, but not the pithy side of things. You've just got a lot of really, really lovely aromatic stuff going on with the hops. So it ends up being a really nicely balanced beer. It's really satisfying. It's these sort of beers always go really well with food. The acidity just really cuts through any kind of fattiness. So really good for stuff like burgers or like cheesy stuff. And really ideal beer to be drinking in this sort of sunny weather. And it's always nice looking at cans from Garage Project. They really, really go the extra mile with the artwork on the labels. And so the artist that did this one is Pablo Espinosa, who, once you look at his portfolio or his Instagram, it becomes really obvious the Garage Project beer cans that he has designed. So stuff like Hippity Dippity was another really lovely sour from GP. And the Serenity of the Void series, the big adjunct Imperial Stout series, that really have his real stamp and his style on them. And Garage Project, you know Garage Project. You probably regularly drink their beers. possibly their tiny range of non-alc beers that are huge. They're their biggest sellers. Absolutely superstar range of beers. But Garage Project is a brewery that is its own thing. They are in a league of their own in New Zealand, and there aren't many breweries in the entire world that are really on their level. It's quite incredible what Garage Project have managed to achieve in a decade or so. I suppose it's a bit like when people talk about the Beatles being fantastic. It's like, well, the Beatles are so much greater than we even talk about, or like William Shakespeare. Even now, hundreds of years on, there's just so much there. But yeah, with Garage Projects, the creativity, the innovation, the risk taking. So yeah, these days they are behind so many things, not least endless beers. They've probably released over 900 beers in their time, and they are based out of a garage. It's a small petrol station in Te Ara in Wellington, and that's where their relatively small brew kit is. And just over the road, they've got their original tap room on the dark side of the street. It's depicted on the Arrow Noir beer can label, and they contract brew their big batches of beer. So they brew at B Studio in Napier, and they always have done, and that's just a fantastic way for them to scale and to grow and really own that six-pack market, and to really get into supermarkets with all their core range beers, while they're doing their seasonal ones and their unusual beers on their own brew kit in the garage. But yeah, recently they've been behind. So it's Joss and Pete, two of the co-founders. So yeah, Joss has been behind Phantasm, which is it's a fairly new ingredient that's becoming pretty popular in beer, which is it adds files to beers. So it's made from what would be wasted grape skins from Sauvignon Blanc grapes. And things like their Happy Project, which is a research and hop development program, and they have an annual symposium for brewers where brewers from all over the world come down and they go to freestyle hops and they select harvests, and they're part of developing things. And they've been experimental and tried lots of things. So there's the Wild Workshop, which is astounding, producing some of the greatest wild ferment beers in the world. And they're the beers that come out of there, which are wild fermentations. They've been wood aged or aged in foeders, and they're so it's not a kettle ferment with the yogurt sort of yeast yogurt souring that's used in this beer. It's more wild bacteria and yeast, and those beers win awards on the world stage. And their wine project, I think that pretty much wrapped up in the last couple of years. And you don't necessarily hear a lot about natural wine these days and orange wines. So that was really innovative and interesting what they're doing there. I think the Dirty Water range of seltzers. So seltzers had a big moment a few years ago, and they've pretty much wrapped that up as well, I believe. And they've moved on to the next thing, which is I think it's called Konbiri, the sort of pseudo-Japanese RTD type thing that they're doing these days. And yeah, I think because their core is so strong, we have such strength in things like Happy Days and Beer, and their core range sells so much they can afford to be experimental, to try new things, to try and come out with a competitor to Guinness, like with their Snug cans, which are nitro cans and obviously way tastier than Guinness. So yeah, every month I feel like there's just really groundbreaking stuff coming out of Garage Projects that, yeah, as I say, even the amount of kudos and praise that's heaped on the brewery probably isn't enough for the amount of stuff that they do. And yeah, their artwork is also a major thing. There's not really especially from a branding perspective, it's all totally different. And I remember reading an interview with, I think it was Pete years ago, and he talked about Garage Project being a house of brands, which is, yeah, it really makes sense that there are their core different brands that are known, and they do great artwork, great merch around them. But it often is that if you see just a beer can that's got a really cool design, you might think that it is a Garage Project beer rather than necessarily having the same brand guidelines or colorways or type and things that are on every single can, which is great to see, and something that I really enjoy doing with the beer cans that I design at Small Gods. So yeah, it's cool that we work with different artists and are pushing the boundaries really in every way possible. Anyway, the sun is shining. It is a glorious Thursday. I'm going to stop waffling on and enjoy this beer for a few minutes while I go and finish writing the quiz for Small Gods Tap Room. If you're in Auckland, come along to our quiz night. We do a quiz every Thursday night. It's awesome. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to the Garage Project team for always putting out beers that keep us on our toes and are pushing boundaries and are interesting, and putting interesting beers in 330s as well. Fewer brewers these days are putting interesting seasonal or one-off beers into smaller cans. So it's cool to see that Garage Project always have something fresh and new. Anyway, that's it for me. Cheers. See you next time.